Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear and On Point Pest Control. This week we're talking about 4 ways to manage our FOPO, fear of other people's opinions. It's real. You know it's real. I know it's real. Dr. Mike Gervais uses that acronym, and we're going to talk about it today. My son swims. He's 11, so I really don't know where his future goes in this sport. But for right now, Sundays are swim meet days around this house. And yesterday, as much as I loved watching him swim his 4 races and drop time off of each race, it was great. What I loved watching more was a really slow race. It was a 100-meter IM, and it was a girls' race. And the last finisher came in probably 2 minutes after the second to the last finisher. And you're thinking, gosh, slow race, what's great about a slow race? Well, this was a really special race because the athlete who swam this race reminded me of what we need to be when we're performing. As I'm watching this race, there are tears just streaming down my face. And as I was typing my tip today, I even got choked up because what this athlete didn't care about was the fact that she came in last. She didn't care that she had a different kind of suit on than everybody else. She didn't care that she didn't dive off the blocks. She didn't care that when she was going down the length of the pool with her breaststroke, she was almost going backwards as much as she was going forward. And it took great perseverance to get her to the end. In fact, when she got to the end of that length of the pool, the whole place went wild. And then she turned and went back. And when she finished, everybody went wild. And I was crying. And I was wondering if anybody else knew that I was crying. In fact, I noticed the woman in front of me was crying, which made me feel better in a little bit because I was worried about what other people were thinking about me, and that swimmer could have cared less. What I did think about during that time as well was how proud her parents must have been of her and the joy that she must feel in accomplishing these great tasks. We were at Cleveland State University. It used to be the fastest pool in the nation. It's a huge natatorium, huge. And that's a big pool. She was swimming 25 yards, of course, but 100 yards, or 100 meters, I guess it really is a long way. And the IM is hard: butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke, freestyle, finish finally. But this race reminded me of so much about how the joke's on us, how we fear other people's opinions. I was worried about whether people were seeing me crying. No one cared what I was doing. Everyone was fully engaged in their own thoughts and in the race. And it also reminded me of why I loved the time we spent with the Cuyahoga County and Summit County Developmental Disability Boards while I was coaching. That was our favorite thing to do. And every time we went there, we found people who were so engaged with what was going on right then and were happy and didn't care what we thought about them. And every time I left there, a little part of me thought, the joke's on us. Yes, everyone would say that we are more well-equipped to win a race or to do all kinds of other things, but there is so much to be learned from this athlete, this champion yesterday. No one would say that a 3+ minute time and 100 IM would be a championship time, but yesterday, that time was the best time in that pool. And here's why. We allow the fear of other people, their opinion, to affect our performance. Dr. Rob Gilbert calls it WWOPT. What will other people think? Dr. Mike Gervais calls it FOPO, fear of other people's opinions. And no matter what you call it, I guarantee you that the people that you lead and you probably deal with this on a daily basis. As soon as that race was over, I got on my phone and I signed up to be a volunteer with Special Olympics because I thought my son needs to go and be with people who are just willing to do, not a whole bunch of people that are worried about what other people are thinking that they're doing. And just the fact that I've noticed that I was wondering if other people watched me cry made me think, wow, How often are we in that mode? Happens to me at church too. I get very emotional during the worship time, the singing. I love it. It's my favorite part of church. Don't tell my cousin Mark there. I love his sermons too. But the singing has always been my favorite. We've always gone to churches that have had amazing music as I was growing up. And it makes me cry. And then I wonder if anybody else is noticing, instead of being engaged in what I'm supposed to be doing, which is thinking about the grace that is making me cry. Think about that for just a second. But here's the point. As Dave Jones, the original Coach Jones, said to me so many years ago, decades ago, Joel, no one is thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. How do you know, Dad? Because they're too busy being worried about themselves. We call this the spotlight effect. And this fear of other people's opinions drives us away from being our best. Researchers Medvik and Savitsky performed an experiment in the year 2000, and they had college students wear embarrassing t-shirts to class. One group had to wear a t-shirt that had Barry Manilow on it. Embarrassing for a 20-year-old, because they probably didn't know who Barry Manilow was. They asked this college students who had the t-shirts on, how many people are going to remember, what percentage of people are going to remember what was on your shirt? They thought more than 50% wouldn't remember. The research showed that about 25% noticed that it was Barry Manilow. Then they did it again, and they used other things like Jerry Seinfeld and other different things, and only 10% noticed what was on the front of somebody else's shirt. So the point of it is that nobody gave a crap or a shirt about what was on the shirt. Nobody cared. Why? Because we get stuck in our own spotlight. We think the spotlight is on us all the time. And the truth of it is that everybody else's spotlight is so bright on them that we can't see each other's spotlights or what even is going on in each other's spotlight. Let's take this to sport and our performance. I was thinking, how do I tie this into making us better as leaders and as athletes? And I thought, when I was coaching, I would think, okay, why is everybody just watching the play and not doing their job? Well, that led me to think, okay, when someone's watching a game, they're not necessarily watching you. They're definitely not watching you, coach. That I know. They're watching the ball. And if they're watching the ball, they're not watching you. The spotlight is on the ball, not on you. So again, no spotlight for you. Spotlight's on the ball. And if they're judging what's going on, they're judging what happened, not necessarily you as a human being. And if something gets screwed up, they're probably judging the coach, because it's probably the coach's fault, as you well know. Or the only time that someone's judging the kid is if they think their kid should be playing there and that other kid shouldn't be. But the truth of it is, we're watching the ball. We're watching the play. How do I know? Because the players that are supposed to be doing something are watching the play too. The spotlight's not on us nearly as much as we think it is. The other example I've used before is that we miss a shot. We think that everybody's watching us. Excuse me. It's the end of the world. But Caitlin Clark misses shots too. And when you watch her, do you scrutinize that and say, oh my gosh, I don't think she should shoot again? She's horrible. No, it's part of the game. We don't scrutinize other people nearly as much as we think that people are going to scrutinize us. We're watching the game, but we're not judging Caitlin Clark, just like people aren't judging us nearly as much as we think they are. And if they are, it says more about them than it does about us. One thing that injured players that I work with notice is that when they're sitting on the bench, they notice that the coach doesn't like nitpick or stop play or sub out every time there's a mistake on the floor. Why? Because the coach sees the mistake and is looking to think about what we need to do next. Again, she might be having a little bit of an opinion about what happened, but she's not like stopping the whole situation because, oh my gosh, you missed a defensive mark, or oh my gosh, you missed a shot, or oh my gosh, right? He or she are thinking about what they need to do next. Again, spotlight probably all over the court, not just on us. So what do we do to manage this thing that has so much weight over what we do as human beings? What do we do about it? I've got a couple ideas. Here's number one. If you find yourself in spotlight mode, stop and think about what you would think if this happened to somebody else. If somebody else missed that shot, what would you think? Okay, no big deal. Or if someone else like made that faux pas, what would you think? Would you give them, you probably give them a little bit of grace, especially if it was your friend. And I hope that you are your own friend. You wouldn't stop and think, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. How could you possibly be able to do anything next? No. You probably would be thinking about what somebody else is thinking about you and not even thinking or judging that person. Because again, we spend so much time thinking about ourselves that we don't spend as much time thinking about others. And if we are thinking about others, we're thinking about what they're thinking about us. Whoa, who's on first? Number 2, check to see if you're really in the spotlight. Look around. Is anybody even looking at you? You're walking in someplace and you think people are noticing you. They probably aren't paying attention at all. Because we are one small part of the whole movie. We are not the star of everybody else's movie. They're the star of their own movie. Is the spotlight really on you? Notice, take a look around, see if anybody's even paying attention. Because I bet most people are not paying attention. And how do you notice that? They're not even looking at you. They have no reaction at all. Or maybe they look at you and smile. Even better, now you feel good. Number 3, make a list of expectations. Write down what you expect of yourself. Write down what other people expect of you or what you think they expect of you. Write down what you know they expect of you. Because a lot of the things that you think people expect of you aren't even true. Then decide what's important to you. Who's important to you? And do those people that are important to you and their opinions or expectations of you, do they add value or do they add stress? And then what are you going to do about that? Look at the expectations. See where all this fits and who really adds value to your life and who do you care that's watching you? And then what are you going to do with that? And then lastly, when you think that others are judging you, ask yourself what others means. James Clear, the author, says this: when I notice myself worrying about what other people will think, I find I'm usually not worried about any single person's opinion. If I pick a specific person, I'm rarely concerned about what they will think. The fear that I have is a collective opinion in my head, and it's imaginary. I think that is such a valuable quote. When I notice myself worrying about what other people think, I find I'm usually not worried about what any single person, what their opinion is. If I pick a specific person, I'm rarely concerned about what they think. What I fear is a collective opinion in my head, and it's imaginary. So, my athlete yesterday that brought me to tears, it moved me so much that I thought, you know what? I've got to get back into this mode I was in as a coach and go help with Special Olympics so that my son can learn that you can do things and not care what other people think in a good way. I want to be more like that athlete yesterday. I want to go out and do my best. I want to be able to cry in church and don't care what anybody else thinks. Because isn't that what I'm there to do? It's not about anybody else. It's about me and the grace that is allowing me to stand there and cry. I want to go out and be my very best, just like that athlete. And not care if I come in last, but care if I improved. And I hope that you can get your athletes or whoever you lead to think that way too. Just like anything else, a simple shift in our perspective in the thoughts and the little tips that I gave there can help us manage and improve our performance. Because the truth of it is, if we're more like the champion yesterday, then the joke's not on us. But the joke is on us so often because we waste so much time worrying about what other people are going to think if we come in last. And the truth of it is no one's probably going to remember it after the meet's over. And we need to remember that no one's thinking of us nearly as much as we think they are. And then if we can remember that, we can go out and be our best. And then what they do think of us is exactly what we want them to think of us because they are seeing and receiving the best of us. And then we can all celebrate together. So I learned something yesterday, or I was reminded of something yesterday. The best race was the slowest race because it was the one that meant the most to her. Probably just a race. But to me, it was a great reminder that we can do for ourselves our best and for our teams our best without bringing in everybody else's imaginary collective thoughts. How can you manage your FOPO today? I hope you picked up something. And if I can help your team manage their FOPO, reach out, juliej@ssbperformance.com. Have a great week. Your spotlight is in your imagination, because everybody else's spotlight is so blinding to them that they can't see yours. Keep that in mind. I bet it'll help you perform better. Have a great week.